Welcome to the Wider View podcast as part of the Leeds View podcast series, the first one of a brand new season, joined by Adonis Storr and Andrea Russo to take the wider, more journalistic view of the world of Leeds United. We're part of the talkSPORT fan podcasting network. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so on YouTube by liking and subscribing, and on the audios by giving us a follow and a channel rating. There's a lot to talk about in the world of Leeds. I'm delighted to have Andrea Russo and Adonis Storr joining us for this season to talk all about what's going on every Wednesday when we're not playing a match, around what Leeds United are doing or what's been said around Leeds in the world. Andrea does work on Ben Locke's channel on Lockie Leeds on the Unfiltered Football podcast, and you can find Adonis over on the Roaring Peacock podcast as well. The details for them will be down below, and I'll give you a little nudge at the end to go and follow the guys there as well. Also, Adonis is a journalist, and Andrea works in sports TV in Italy as well. You would have seen him on the news this morning talking about this. So we'll check in with the lads to see how they're getting on. Andrea, first things first, how are you, mate?
Good, mate. Very excited for us to start this new podcast. Honestly, good to do it with both of you. I think we'll have plenty of good wide conversations. Hence the name of the podcast. But yeah, good. I had to recover the game today from last night. Because as you said, there was on TV first program, first show of the season. Because of course, for people who don't know, I also follow my local team, Reggiana. As I do punditry on the local TV that we have, similar to what Yorkshire television used to be. But I know that local TVs are no longer a thing, in the UK. They've been basically, scrapped in the past. So that also paved the way, for the growth of YouTube. So for new media. But yeah, good overall. Very, very happy after seeing the performance today. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good performance. But we'll try and get to the game towards the back end of this. We will try and cover off the other talking points first. Adonis, how are you, mate? Welcome on board.
Yeah, good to be here. Good to see everybody. I hope you're all feeling optimistic. I hope you're not feeling too down about Sunderland making moves in the transfer market.
God. Oh, no.
Oh, no. I think we've seen enough evidence from the Niners since they've taken over that they know what they're doing in the transfer market. I put out a tweet yesterday, and that was about, compare and contrast Victor Orta. And when Orta was in charge, he used to, he said a lot, didn't he? But he had this phrase where he would say 33% of transfers are successful. I think this current regime are operating far higher percentage than that. So I don't remember being this optimistic in the last 25 years. Maybe after we finished 9th under Bielsa, but then that summer market was awful, and this transfer window has been absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, and I suppose we'll get stuck in and start straight off on that, because that is the vibe around the place right now. We've come off the back of a very good performance last night. I went to bed unusually and unsettlingly calm about everything that's got to do with Leeds. The impending doom wasn't in the back of my head, which on its own made me feel a little bit nervous and edgy going to bed. I felt like my comfort blanket was missing. And then you wake up this morning and Sunderland have finally done something in the transfer market, and immediately there's a reaction like it's PTSD from last year, and it's, well, they're going to get Pajot and they're going to get Jack Grealish, and we're going to miss out on those. It should also be pointed out that we did take Tariq Muharmovic from under their nose already this summer, so they're due another swipe back. And we got James Trafford as well, so you can't get all your top targets, but Leeds still have a bit of work to do. Where are you sitting with this then, Adonis, looking at the wider market that Leeds need to play in? Farke has said it. He expects more business between now and the end of the window. The clock is ticking on that. We're less than a week now remaining of the window. Leeds still need a bit of business to do. He's talking about another centre-back. We know we need left-back cover. We know we need attacking threats as well. So where's your pessimistic versus optimistic level coming into the final 6 days of the window?
But the pessimist has left the building. When I think about like where Leeds are currently with this current squad and the improvements that they've made, if you look at, so since December last year, so in other words, since we switched to a 3-4-2-1, we're 6th in the form table. And that means that there's only 5 clubs that have outperformed us in that time. We've improved massively over the summer. James Trafford, Tariq Maramovic, Nico Elvedi. I mean, I said on Twitter, I got a little bit of stick for it, that he could be better than Beal. And Beal might actually struggle to get his place back. Obviously, very early. But
Yeah.
And somebody said he's only played 45 minutes. This was at halftime. It's my halftime tweet. And I said, well, but he's played sort of 300 times in the Bundesliga. And he's played over 70 times for Switzerland. So it's not like he's an unknown quantity. He is a very, very good defender. He's only been there 3 days, and he looked like he'd been there 3 years. So I think that's another fantastic acquisition. But Trafford and Maramovic, they're the ones, I think. And you'll notice the confidence that's rippled through the squad, our defenders. Remember how we were almost like cats when they see a cucumber or something. Joe Rodon used to be like that with Meslier. It was almost like PTSD. I don't want to throw these mental illness terms around but you know what I mean. But the confidence, the reassurance that's rippled throughout, and the effect on opposition teams as well. Because I noticed, certainly, especially in the Premier League game against Forest, they seemed like they were trying too hard, the Forest attackers. They thought they had to break a hole in the net to beat Trafford. And that is fear. That is his reputation. A lot of it's in the mind. It's mind over matter sport. So the myth has preceded Trafford, and I think that I just think that acquisition has elevated us so much. And so we were 6th in the form table, and now look at the Premier League, how it is. 9 new managers, 9 teams in Europe. We don't have Europe. We're very stable third. He's the third longest reigning manager in the Premier League now, Farke, isn't he? So we are stable. We've massively improved. Like I said, the pessimist has left the building. I'm very, very optimistic.
It does start to creep in a little bit, Andrea, when you're watching the clock. And you've seen it today. I mean, I've seen it today. And you put a tweet out just before we came on as well.
Yeah.
There is a bit of a rumbling of, oh no, we're not going to get it done. We still have so much to do and we're not going to get it done. Now, I think for context, it should be said that it was a championship, but when they needed to get a lot done, they did 5 in a week once. So they can do that. But you do look at historically at the final week of a transfer window in the summer for Leeds in the last recency bias, the last 2 summers. And you kind of go, if this comes down to deadline day and there's planes on tarmac, I'm not confident we'll see anybody walk in the door. So that's the niggly feeling that's kind of out there at the moment. And we don't know what Leeds' targets are. We know they looked at Paisdale, but they didn't actually put a bid in for him. They just inquired about it. And that's all that's been done there. So you do understand that little apprehension that it might not get done. How do you feel?
It's understandable, I think, because if you look at our past, there's the Gakpos, the Bamba Diengs, the Buonanotte of this world, all transfers that have basically failed, have crumbled very near to the deadline day, to the end of the window. Some of them practically also in the final hours, like Bamba Dieng when Rodrizzani tweeted and said, let's welcome Bamba Dieng, and he didn't board the plane, So we've lived it all, in the past, even last season with Wilson, when after Buonanotte was done in the evening, next morning he was going to Chelsea, So we switched to Wilson, and we didn't manage to get Wilson on because the time was too little. We had to agree the terms to find a good agreement with Fulham. The time was too short, so that's why I think there's this sense of apprehension. Now that you see that Paixão might go to Sunderland, and I want to also say one thing about that. There was one thing that people have underlined, I think, has gone unnoticed. Who's the owner of Sunderland? Kirill Wiedefus. Who is the minority owner of Marseille? 5% used to be the majority owner, Louis Dreyfus family. And we know that Marseille need to sell. So it makes sense for them to sell to Sunderland if the player wants to go to the Premier League. 30 million. The majority owner, of course, in Marseille now is the American Frank McCourt. But the Louis Dreyfus family still has 5% of the shares in OM, and they own Sunderland. So I think also the ties, the connection there have played a part. And Sunderland, we were talking about this, before starting the podcast. They haven't done much signings, during the summer compared to last summer when they went on an absolute spending spree like Nottingham Forest when they went up in the first season. They eventually got the signings that they wanted. They lost some of the players like Gertruida, Mukiele, because some of them were loans. Now they still need to replace some of them. It looks like they might get Grealish and Parkshaw, but it's probably they're gonna just make 2-3 signings. We have made the signings that we needed. We have an established starting 11. Now we need to add depth to the squad, because realistically, in an ideal world, we should get 4 for me. I never made a mistake that we need a backup number 9. It's not missed because we let Piro go, so of course we need another one to come in. Another winger, of course, because we are a little bit short on one of the two sides, depending on where you play. For example, Nyont, if you want to keep him playing on the right, or move him as a backup to Okafor on the left. Of course, the backup to Gudmundsson, because yesterday it was, we'll talk about the game, of course, later on, but it was a good tactical move, the fact that he rested Bogle and played James on paper
Very good.
in his role, but in possession, Rodman was playing there basically. So, of course, but it shows how short we are there, because Justin, Bogle, if you rest one of them, you don't have anyone because Gudmundsson is injured. Then, of course, a backup 6 because we wanted Charles. Of course, the center midfield is not the main area because we have plenty of players there, but a natural replacement to Ampadu still misses for me. And, of course, another centre-back because we just had, for example, Biol yesterday on the bench. But if one of them is injured, you have 3 centre-backs and you have no one. Basically, no backup like last season. Basically, when we switched to a back 3, when we just had Bohr now, on the bench. So yeah, I think we'll get something done. I'm pretty confident. I'm pretty enthusiastic, to be fair. The only thing that concerns me, of course, is even Farke going that public, in his post-match comments. I think he's confident too that it will get some of the players, not everyone probably. But we got some of the players, and we'll have the depth to stay in this season. We'll have the depth, So I'm pretty confident. So far, we wanted certain targets, in certain areas we got them. Now we have to add the icing on the cake, because if we do, we'll really have fun this season. We can really have fun because it's already looking like a very tight, very connected, very strong group of players, very connected to the fan base and also with the manager, because you can already see improvements. Like Adonis mentioned, there were players like Trafford, like Elvedi, like Moremic. It looks like they are playing for us for ages. It was just the first game for Elvedi and the second one for the other ones,
Yeah, they all did. I mean, like I talk with Nico Elvedi over a year now. December 24, we were first linked with Nico Elvedi. He's a centre back I've had a lot of time for. I think he's a fantastic centre half, calming influence there. It's a fantastic position to be in, Adonis. We've got 3 very settled centre backs who are all, for me, of equal level and could very easily just interchange around there. They're pretty fluid across that back 3 as well. You could see Bial playing on the left-hand side if they need him to play there, and Rodon can go into the middle, or Elvedi. There's lots of options there. But Farke did say it. He wants one more centre back. And as Andrea said there, he's confident. I would go a step further to say there's a bit of a swagger about Daniel Farke, what I've seen of him so far in the first couple of weeks of the season. He seems to have this little wry smile on his face. He's very relaxed and getting the vibe. I know something you don't know from Daniel Farke, which I'm hoping to be the case. But outside that centre back that he's publicly said he still would like one of them in, what do you think the focus needs to be? Because obviously there's cover needed, but he did say proper signings yesterday, which would suggest to me he still wants somebody for that starting 11 as well, maybe further up the pitch.
Yeah, so we need a striker. We need somebody who can replicate what Dominic Calvert-Lewin does. That unfortunately that isn't Lucas Mecha. I love Mecha. I mean, his smile is enough to light up Ellen Road on a dark night by itself. But when he comes in, he can't hold the ball up the way that Calvert-Lewin does. And there are a lot of times where we're under the cosh. Especially against the bigger teams, the teams who've spent far more money than Leeds are capable of. And what Calvert-Lewin does so well is he holds the ball up and he brings the whole team up the pitch. and that is so valuable. He doesn't lose the ball very easily. He will chest it. He will protect it. He's strong. He fights back against those centre backs. He fights for everything. He's pace, stamina, runs his heart out all the time, in the same way that Bamford used to do. But he's got quality as well. You know, not that Paddy didn't completely, but maybe not when there was a crowd there.
Levels.
But when he's out, which is always the worry, with Dominic, despite, you know, some of his injury problems being a little bit of a myth, it's always a possibility. We need that quality backup, and it would be nice to have somebody a little bit younger as well, sort of a little bit of an understudy, somebody who, you know, has got fire in their belly, has got potential, and who can really learn off Calvert-Lewin. I think that's essential. I think that if we didn't do anything else, that would be the one for me. And then next would be a left winger. I've just seen Johnny Cooper of Opta Stats. He's tweeted out since the start of December, Noah Okafor has started 16 matches for Leeds, and Leeds United have only lost one of those. So it's 1-8, drawn 7 of the games since December that Okafor has started. That says to me that he's pivotal. He is absolutely.
We don't score when he's
pivotal.
not on the pitch.
Very difficult, because you need somebody who makes things happen, who backs themselves. You can lose the ball up the pitch when you're a left winger. You can't lose the ball when you're in your own half or when there's a threat of transition. But when you're in an attacking position, you don't want players who are just going to pass backwards, because we've seen that. That was one of my criticisms of Manor Solomon. Solomon had the ability, but he didn't back himself enough. Okafor backs himself. And when it's a stalemate, and a lot of these games are stalemates, that's why Trafford was so important. Because if you don't concede, then that's massive, because so many of the games last season were decided by a single goal. But we haven't been particularly creative at times where you don't have your creative players on the pitch. So that would be my next wish, is somebody like a Grealish on loan. Everton are in for him. Sunderland are now in for him. Sunderland hoarding the left wingers, apparently. I mean, they've got Angulo, they've got Talbe, they've got Lafay who can play there. Now they're bringing in, presumably, Pejao because of the connections Andrea alluded to. It's a shame nepotism doesn't exist in football, and then there are some rules in there. And now they're trying to get Grealish as well. And of course, they can offer all these players European football.
Yes.
So that was the sort of the cost of last season of Leeds not getting a decent goalkeeper in. So number one priority, striker. Number two priority, I think, for me, left winger. And then you can sort of talk about your backup keeper, because you've already got Perry there. I mean, it would be great to get Zeta in. Kicker have reported that he was in Leeds over the weekend and he's taken a look around. And when he came to Leeds, he's decided...
Like Amiri. Amiri took
not
0.
It's not miserable. It's actually quite nice here. It doesn't rain all the time.
But it was lovely.
And then maybe a centre back.
He went to try the new burger of Anton Stack.
Stack's burger. Yeah. That's the.
That was enough to send him home.
That's...
Yeah. Well, let's start there, Andrea. Then let's talk about the goalkeeping position, because obviously you're in Italy and you're in touch with what's going on over there. Lucas Perry's had a hell of a transfer summer without going anywhere. He ends up with number 28 shirt, I believe, for Leeds. He's sitting on the bench for the last 2 games. I did get the vibe yesterday because he wasn't starting the cup match. He's off. Daniel Farke doesn't seem opposed to keeping him as a bench or a backup option for James Trafford, but has made it very clear James Trafford is our number 1, and he'll have to settle for cup football. Zetira, like Perry, linked with a couple of different clubs, but linked with Leeds, but appears to be in a domino chain. So if it's a case that Frankfurt can get the goalkeeper from Freiburg that they're after, then Michael Zetera can go, and if Zetera goes, then Peru can leave. But if one of those dominoes doesn't happen, everyone stays where they are. Zetterer seems to be happy enough to stay at Frankfurt and fight for his position there. He's not pushing for a move. Where do you sit with the goalkeeping position? For me, I mean, if Perry stays and Leeds can make the finances of that work, fine. No issues for me at all. Zetterer is an experienced goalkeeper, good with the ball at his feet, fine. No big drama for me.
Yeah, it's a peculiar one because I thought maybe when we signed Trafford, Perry goes. That's what the plan was essentially. But eventually now it turns out that because Perry had this minor injury problem, he had to stay longer, in order to return to work on his fitness. So now we're not letting him go until we sign a number 2. Or if we don't manage to sign number 2, Perry stays. But I don't think that's what he wants because he's been trying to negotiate a move. It was supposed to go to Torino, and there were articles and pieces and Torinese press in the last 48 hours titled, with the title "Where has Perry ended up? Where is he?" Because they were waiting for him. It's been going on for almost a month now. This telenovela, they were saying, the Spanish-speaking regions, like a soap opera of Perry going, Perry's arriving, but Perry's not arriving. It's like a series. Every week there's something new about this thing with Perry. Like when Marcel tried to hijack the move, but they didn't manage, and it was and in Torino they said, okay, now he's arriving, and he's not arriving yet. They played the first match against AC Milan. They lost. They had signed this young goalkeeper, Mascardi from Spezia. Got relegated last season to the third tier 2. So now they're also talking about if we don't sign Perry, why not try to keep him as the number 1, but he's still unexperienced, Torino want Perry. I think it all depends on Zetterer eventually, because I'm not that sold on Zetterer. I like the player, but if a player doesn't want to, is not pushing for a move, is content, when your club is actively seeking, a replacement for you. I've read some comments, I always do when a player is linked, like the feedback from the fan base. There's still a mixed reaction regarding Zetterer in the Eintracht Frankfurt fan base. There were some. Then when the news was brokered, was posted by Plettenberg for the first time, there were some comments like, yeah, let him leave. Don't know what you're getting. But I think he's a good goalkeeper. It's a good goalkeeper. Honestly, they said, you have given us Robin Koch. Now we're giving you Zetterer. Like they were criticizing Koch too, but Koch is now, Robin Koch is also in the mix, was under Nagelsmann, for the German national team. I don't know if that would be the case with Jurgen Klopp, but I don't know. Same with Amir, we tried to pursue a player that is more willing to stay at his club to fight for his play, even if they sign Autobolu from Freiburg. So I don't know. Honestly, there's also other options, as backups. There were also options in the free agent market for me. There was Vasil. There were also other Peneto, for example. They were cheap basically because they were zero net transfers. You could reinvest the money on other players if you're really gonna spend real money for a backup option. Because you're getting a player that, of course, has UCL experience, has started out of the 2 goalkeepers that they had at Eintracht the majority of the games last season, with ups and downs. Because at one point in the season he got benched. I like the player. Again, as a number 2 would be perfect. Experience would be exactly what we need. But again, what happened with Perry? Then we will need a loan with an option to buy or mandatory option to buy under certain conditions, because otherwise you find yourself next summer with Trafford, Perry, and also Zetterer, 2 goalkeepers who are very similar in terms of probably wages and contract structure. So they are connected. If we see Perry going to Torino, this move ramping up, that's the sign that Zetterer is coming to Leeds for me.
Yeah. Adonis, then on that, then looking at one domino falling before we see the next domino fall, the striker position, you've already talked about it at the start of this. Leeds have let Joe Pirro move, which would suggest, giving Leeds' track record over the course of this summer, they at the very least have got someone lined up that they're hoping to bring in, if not already working on the deals of that behind the scenes, because again, Leeds work in silence. One of the players that was mentioned was Conrad Harder. information's come out in the last 24 hours to say not a player Leeds are actually pursuing at the moment. So Leeds have these shortlists. Conrad Harder is on a shortlist, but not the player they're looking at. Same with the wide players. Mudryk and Pajot are on a list, but not necessarily the player on that list that they're looking for. Leeds don't let somebody go unless they're planning on bringing somebody else in, and they're a bit light up front.
Yeah, usually. But
I hope.
again, we know how transfers can go, right? I mean, Dan James was in the Leeds shirt. He'd signed his contract, he'd done his medical, and he'd done all the promo shoots. And then Hugh Jenkins refused to pick up the phone. But on the other hand, you wait until the last minute and you get Rafinha, who hadn't been available for the whole summer up until that point. So it's always a gamble. Like on the timing of transfers, I think that the James Trafford transfer, the timing of it, for example, massive. Because if you look at Chelsea now, scrambling around to try to get Emi Martinez because they realise that Robert Sanchez could cost them whatever their ceiling they think they have. And I think Xabi Alonso is an incredible manager, unfortunately, because I would like to see Chelsea do quite badly. But I actually think they're going to do very well. And I think Cole Palmer looks like he's got a point to prove. But if they don't fix that goalkeeper position, then they'll be in big trouble. And if James Trafford was still on the market, I think there'd be a bidding war right now. And if you look at what's happened with Villa have gone to Suzuki as well. So it's all about timing, and you have to get the timing right. But it's not, a lot of fans I see on social media do something. They're poking Leeds with the stick, the meme, and any time today, lads, and they'll,
And any news feel like the good old days.
And exactly.
Leeds will put out a post, and it'll be Ilya Gruev going to a children's cancer ward or something, can the little lad play up front or something? Do you know what I mean? So it's just fans that, if you look on social media,
it's tunnel vision.
Maybe not so much empathy and maybe and a little understanding. There isn't a shop where you go to. It's not like buying a sausage roll at Greg's. You've got to other baked goods stores
are available,
yeah. There's a negotiation, and Farke talked about it the other day, and he was talking about players' names out in public being linked with the club, and agents will drop Leeds United's name in order to try and get a better deal. I mean, you think about Zetero, talking about him before. If he was negotiating his a contract with Leeds, do you think it would be in his benefit to say in public, "Oh, Leeds United, I supported them when I was a 3-year-old. It's been my absolute dream. I would play for them for free." He's obviously not going to say any of those things because it's not in his best interest, just like it isn't in Leeds United's best interest to tell everybody the names of their targets or who they're negotiating with. And so I think it's also important when you're a journalist and you're a fan of the club to maybe you don't want to leak some of this stuff either, because it's just not in the benefit of the club for everybody to know that. I do think there's a bit of a glint in Farke's eye. I don't know if that's because he knows something. I would suspect it's more to do with the state of the club, where the club is right now. It's such a good spot. It's an unbelievable spot. And for him to be backed for the second year in a row and to be given, he pushed hard for Trafford to be given that signing, absolutely massive. You remember he could only spend £1 million when he brought Norwich up, and he had to play all the kids, and you saw how well that worked. So this is probably the best situation he's ever had as a manager, and who knows where Leeds could end up. But so quietly confident that something can come in. If that's what he says, then I believe him. He has in the past spit out the dummy a bit in public, hasn't he? And said, we need to
Yeah.
do something and sort of stoke the fires. But if he's confident, I'm confident.
Yeah, he seems patient enough, and we're not seeing the same version we saw at the last year where he was talking about a 10. Now he's 4 years waiting on that number 10. Fingers crossed somebody comes in the door that gets it even close to it, an inside forward, inside winger, whatever hybrid of a 10 would be great. Andrea, there's exits as well to happen. It looks like Willie Nanto's going to stay at the club because he had a really good preseason. He looked very dangerous on that new kind of right-sided attack that Leeds have gone with. Not so much the case for Largi Ramazani. The Valencia have come in the last couple of hours again. They're looking for a loan. Leeds are looking for a sale. Burnley have been linked with a move for him as well. They're talking about €4 million, which is about £3 million, with a sell-on clause on that as well down the road to try and get extra money back at that point. So he needs to go, and Mateo Joseph's out long-term injured. So it seems like we're only waiting on Perry possibly, but not necessarily guaranteed. But Ramazani, yes, to go, and that's the outs done. And then the 1 or 2 incomers. Where do you sit on the squad for the outs right now with the likes of Ramazani and Perry on the fringes of that? Leeds outgoing business in terms of the incoming business this season?
Well, it makes sense, eventually, because if they're not in the plans, especially Ramazan, he's not been involved in preseason. So the goal was always to not include him. So either operate with a sell, or unfortunately, because the time is ticking, loan with probably an option. We'll see what happens. Of course, it's a very low fee, but we need to consider that during this season that he played with Leeds, he had an injury. He started all right, in the first part of the season, then got injured, and then he was in and out because it's pretty honest. I know people like Ramazani because he's a player fun to watch. He's one of the players that like to dribble, like to attack 1v1, like to do some techers, like you call them in England, like they call them in England. Sorry, Joe, of course, because you live in Ireland, of course, like they call them in England. But yeah, it makes sense, to try to go for a permanent. But unfortunately, either you settle for a low fee, like in this case, otherwise you will be forced to go for a loan with the option to buy, or for probably a higher fee. But it's difficult. It's very difficult. That's unfortunately probably his real value, because, like I said, had an injury, then was in and out, because there were simply better players, than James, and Manuel Solomon were better than him. Ramazani and Willie Gnonto this season we went up in terms of contribution. It can reflect in. It reflected on goals and assists, in the Ramaro, but also the way they gelled, in the final third, the way they created. They were playing basically also inside forwards, James more width, Solomon more inside, compared to, because he had Firpo on his side, of course. But yeah, Ramazani had a good season, had a good end of the season, not a good full season in Valencia, so good end of the season, but struggled to find consistency in the early stages of the season and the middle part of the season. So right now it makes sense if they want him. Of course, there are not many suitors. If you're looking for a permanent, probably Burnley is the better one. If you're looking for, if you asking more money, however, than the fee that it's been talked about, probably they're gonna drop out. Otherwise, you'll end up short of suitors, and then you will be forced to go for the loan to Valencia, probably with an option similar to Perry eventually. Because these two players, need to go, free up spaces in the squad. Gnonto and James, probably there were also players that weren't much involved. Of course, James was injured for a majority of last season. Weren't much involved last season, but looks like they're going to be involved this season. Also looking at preseason, and James, yesterday, probably Farke is working. We need to tailor him a role, because again, he started on paper as a right wing back, but he was effectively in possession playing as a right wing. So these two eventually are staying. The other one that I thought it might leave, but he was injured all preseason, is Gruev, because of course we were trying to sign Shea Charles, and Shea Charles of course plays in his position. I would like to see an upgrade on Ilya Gruev. I think he's a decent player. But the thing that worries me is the mobility of Gruev, in the Premier League. I think he's more suited to other leagues. But I think he will stay too, because there's little time. There's doubt about his match fitness, of course, because he was injured for the majority of preseason. He's only coming back now towards the final days of the season or of preseason and the transfer window. So it will be difficult to, unless you want to loan him out and you have a ready replacement yet, he will absolutely stay at the club. So yeah, the only two exits probably Perry and Ramazan eventually. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting last couple of days. We'll have the watch along for our last 2-hour live stream on transfer deadline day on Tuesday night, as we tend to always do every single season, to see if Leeds can do anything. Usually we just talk about airplanes parked in car parks, but we'll hopefully have someone coming through the door this year to talk about, or at least be able to look back on the whole window fondly or with optimism and see if Leeds can get all their bits and pieces done. And Adonis, some other news that came out today in the press. Prag Morate has rejoined the Rangers board as vice chairman. Now, for those who aren't aware of this, he was part of the board after the 49ers Enterprises bought a minority stake in the Glasgow Rangers. Andrew Kavanagh, who's a pharmaceutical billionaire, is the guy that owns Glasgow Rangers. 49ers are in there as his minority partner. Prag was initially the vice chairman or co-chairman. He had to step away last summer due to multi-club model issues that had Rangers and Leeds both qualified for Europe. They had conversations with UEFA and he decided to step down from his role, but he's gone back and he is back as the vice chairman of Glasgow Rangers. So I don't know whether he's got no hope in Leeds qualifying for Europe this year or no hope in Glasgow Rangers qualifying for Europe this year. But it's an interesting one for him to go back in there. I mean, obviously he's free now, Adonis, not having to look after the 49ers anymore, stepping down from his role there to look completely after the soccer or footballing side, as we'd say, of the business. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I mean, well, firstly, he was influential at the Niners for the last sort of 25 years. So in terms of a wealth of knowledge, he is very knowledgeable. I know there was a lot, he talked about doing contracts in his sleep, and it was in his wheelhouse. And then, there were lots of complaints about the loan exodus and all of that stuff. But he is a very knowledgeable analyst and executive. And what was integral that he did, or what was really revolutionary that he did at the Niners, was the way that they used the salary cap. And so for something like SCR, for example, and PSR before it, that really would have been his wheelhouse. So in terms of budgeting, in terms of the contract structure and the payment structure, because obviously your revenue grows every year, right? And so you want to back end a lot of these amortize contracts, so that you're paying the majority of the fees and the wages towards the back end. You're always pushing that window kicking the can further down the road. So he was revolutionary in American football at those sorts of accounting tactics. You're exactly right. He stepped away from Rangers because of discussions with UEFA. I have no idea whether the rules have changed or whether he's had further discussions and that's why he's gone back. Maybe he could get, Donald Trump to make a phone call if we do get into Europe. I don't know how it's going to work.
That always works out well, doesn't it? What could possibly go wrong with that one?
I would say Leeds are in the best position.
There was a Balogun play for Rangers, by the way, in the past.
There was
Liam Balogun. There was in the past, yeah. So there's always a Balogun, in these cases.
And of course we had Maramovic, who was the one that Balogun fouled.
Was fouled, yeah.
So yeah, full set, lots of coincidences, but not sure why he's gone back there. I'm sure he can juggle a few things at once. When he did take over at Leeds, he did talk about his role being find the right people for the right jobs and get out of their way and let them do it and give them trust. And I know when I've had bosses in the past, I'm not great with bosses, but when they've trusted me, when they've trusted me and I've been given the freedom to do my job without being micromanaged over my shoulder, that's when I've really flourished. And there have been micromanaging owners in the past who've tried to stick their oar in more and more.
Fascinating.
Massimo comes to mind, even Radrizzani in the end, who appeared to think
Started.
he knew better than Bielsa, which is a very strange sort of. I've never been that confident. Never been that confident. So to me, his management style is good, and I'm sure that he can. I trust him to oversee the club and Rangers, and I think Rangers need a lot more work than Leeds do at this present time. But I'm sure that he will do the merry-go-round and step down again if that's required towards the end of the season, because it does feel like, you know, Europe is a real possibility for Leeds where it hasn't been for at least 2 decades.
Yeah, I want to walk before we can sprint, but you do see it and think we're far more stable at the moment than most clubs. So you never know, we could end up finding ourselves in those positions. Andrea, any thoughts on prior going back to Rangers?
Well, I think there's plenty of work, like Adonis said, to do that, especially after last season, the madness that happened, with the Russell Mountain situation. Now
He's doing well at Leicester this year, isn't he?
they're gonna struggle, but I don't know why they haven't tried to sign Jamie Vardy back, honestly, because he's still a free agent. Both them and Sheffield Wednesday. Yeah, I don't know why. He's doing videos for YouTube with selling depth, these challenges now to spend this time, but in a League One level, it was good in Serie A with Cremonese, at 37. So I don't know why they're not trying to sign him for Wednesday and Leicester, to sign him back. But yeah, there's plenty of work to do at Rangers. I agree with Adonis. I think if Leeds or Rangers, find themselves to both qualify for Europe, he will step down again. But they are operating well, honestly. They're making more signings. They're more active in the market, compared to us with a different strategy. Of course, we share certain things to them. They are operating. They signed Nedeljkovic, Dan Neil from Sunderland, the Naderi from Roster Kiel, good player. That I like I said 2 weeks ago when we talked on the podcast with Locke, about the backup in midfield, the 6, because we didn't sign Chechas, look at what happens with Pike Shaw and Sunderland and Marseille, if they want to give us Nico Raskin, I will be happy, honestly, as an addition.
I wouldn't say no.
I wouldn't say no, honestly. He started for Belgium at the World Cup, so good
player.
Good player. Yeah, I don't know why he's still there in playing in the Scottish League on disrespect, because I actually like the league. There's plenty of good of historical clubs like Aberdeen, Dundee, and the United, Hibs, Hearts, Celtic, of course. So yeah, I think the league is growing, but and that's why also they invested there. Apart from the fact that Rangers is an historical club, so I also like the fact that it will be fully invested in football. Of course, football, not American football in this case, but football. So yeah, I like the way he conducts the club, the professionalism behind it. The fact also that he's professional, like the last end of the season letter, when he explained we will have to operate under the SCR, trying to explain the situation before the transfer window starts, in order to explain to the fans what to expect, not to lower their expectation, but to be realistic, Eventually, I think our expectations were, lowered, not lower, were adjusted compared to what he said in that letter, But I think they have exceeded our expectation in terms of signing with Moramovic and Traxford especially, But we also need to remind ourselves that Parag said also one thing, recently said that there's one player, a top player that might be that's not available now, but might be available towards the end of the window. So is that the player that makes Farke be confident when he goes into the press conference saying, I want players? And I also said that he didn't always get the players that he wanted, always get all the players that he wanted in the previous windows, So probably when he says that, you owe me something now, because I was patient. I always thank Farke also for one thing, the season he signed under that madness left behind by Victor Orta, second time we mentioned him today, with the clauses, it was really difficult. And he was the only one speaking about the whole situation on the club, the clauses, what was happening behind the scenes, because he was the only one of the club that was speaking to the media, So it was basically, Farke was Leeds United for everything. We're asking him about the clauses, about the transfer window, but he was the manager. He wasn't only a manager back then, summer 2023. So for everything we've gone through, yesterday, today actually, because of course I watched the game today, I was looking at the players, like I'm looking Moramovic, Was it the World Cup? Elvedi was it the World Cup? Okafor in this passage in the game. I said 3 years ago, Farke was there with Joe Gellert, Joe Shackleton in Birmingham in that game. So
Yeah.
look how far we've come since then. Since that difficulty when we had Sinister and Adams threatening to go to their legals, to enforce clauses because the clauses were not clear in terms of deadline. So yeah, I think
Shock horror.
top player might be-
Victor Horta wrote a contract and the clauses weren't that clear on it. There's a shocking
they
breaking
were not
story.
clear. Yeah, they were not clear. They were not very clear.
Yeah, so that
Smudge at the bottom. Sweat.
Birmingham 1 Leeds 0. That was the 12th of August 2023.
Yeah,
Would you like the lineup?
3 years. Yeah, go on.
Elan
that's a
Meslier
goal.
at left back, Sam Byram, Pascal Strauch, Charlie Creswell, Luke Ayling, Ethan Ampadu, Jamie Shackleton in defensive midfield, Dan James on the left wing, Archie Gray attacking midfield, Jan Paveda on the right wing, and Joe Gelhardt up front.
Looks like an
come a long way.
experimental team. Yeah.
We have come a long way in it. I mean, it's 3 years.
Pre-season team, pre-season friendly. Looks like a team out there, pre-season friendly.
So on that though, because it has been said, and I want to make sure I acknowledge the comments that have come in over the last couple of weeks on this as well. It has been said that Parag was talking hypothetically when he said that, you want to keep a few pennies back just in case this kind of special player becomes available. But Adonis, we've heard this from Leeds before. Leeds will find the money for special players. It was Pajot last year when they were going to smash the transfer record to bring him in. And there's Strand Larson in the summer was a market was a market opportunity. So they were going to find the money, despite the fact that they had to sell Pascal Strauch before the PSR deadline in the summer. Now Leeds were looking at a loan with an option to buy at the end of the season. So they do try and figure this out. I don't necessarily believe that Parag Marathe or Daniel Farke, for that matter, say things for the sake of saying it. I think when they speak, they're saying something that they want to say. And there's a deliberate action behind that, not just slipping out of their mouth. And I think that Parag's possibly leaning into that because he does like a big brash statement. Again, the contracts were won, but he does like to say, we're going to do this and we'll do it. Where do you sit on that? Do you think it's a hypothetical, or do you think he's got a couple of pennies in the back pocket and he's going, we're just going away for this guy?
No, it's not a hypothetical. I wouldn't have advised him to say that. I don't think that helps your negotiation position if you...
Or with the fans. Because if you
said that
don't...
last season too. Said we will make further signings. Players will come after Everton. After Everton, he did too.
With a little glint in your eye, saying to the whole world, "Oh, we've got a little something in our back pocket," because that's only ever going to drive the price up. Now they have been very, very strict with their evaluations, and you saw that with Shea Charles. They set their valuation; they weren't going any higher. And obviously you go a bit higher with the second and third bid, but there's got to be a cut-off point of final offer. I think they clearly do. If you look at the finance, there's not as much transparency as with American football, for example. But if you read between the lines, value ball is quite good for a bit more accuracy, because the Athletic put out something that said that our net spend was like 40 or 50 million, something.
Doesn't matter in an SCR world, your net spend doesn't mean anything. No,
I mean, obviously they've got to figure out. They're in the transition at the moment, right? So last season will still be based on PSR, so they still have to sort of figure that out. And then now squad cost rules are coming in for this season, but there is still some money in the back pocket. I wouldn't have said that there is publicly with a little glint in my eye and saying somebody might come up, but he's at the end of the day he's like us, isn't he? He's a fan. He wants the best for Leeds United, and he's probably thinking, oh, remember when we got Rafinha?
Yeah.
Look at him now, Barcelona captain, the Ballon d'Or nominee. And so it was the year that Rodri won, wasn't it? That he probably got a little bit robbed. So there's
Dembele last
there.
year. Year before last, it was Dembele won it. It was like it should have been Rafinha's hands down.
Yeah, that's right, Dembele. But yeah, so I definitely think there's the potential there, and they're obviously quite confident that something can happen. There are a lot of clubs, by the way, that need to sell. Marseille are one of them, but there are quite a few clubs, especially in France, that are at risk of getting fines from UEFA. So there is a lot of value to be had, and they have found a lot of value in the past. Speaking of number 6s, Arthur Avon. Have you heard of him?
Yeah, it was on the list last week. Yeah.
Yeah.
The list when we talk with Loki. Yeah, he's a very good player.
Yeah.
Cameroonian.
Exactly. And you were talking about a number 6, Andrea. Well, I looked at Au. I love Au. I love him. But I looked at Au during that cup game, and I thought the floor of this squad is raised significantly, and you're going to need to raise with it, mate, or somebody else
Started
is
well,
have to upgrade.
but he did drop off once he got the yellow card. But I thought he started very well. I thought Sean Longstaff was a little iffy in that mid. But I look at this isn't to have a dig at any of those players. They've all been very good for us. But if you're looking at this unemotionally, and you're looking at, well, what areas of this park can we upgrade to get to the next level? I do think you look at the middle of the pitch and think there's an upgrade there.
Yeah, absolutely. Longstaff, worst game that I've seen him play.
Still gets an assist.
Yeah. And then he got the assist. I mean, I literally typed in the Roaring Peacock group chat. I said, we need to sub Longstaff off, get him off. And then he...
Same was said about Stack last weekend. Then he scores. You're like, well, there you go. Farke knows best.
Absolutely.
Right, guys, we're getting to, well, we've gone over time, but this is the first one we've done. So I'm delighted to get talk to the lads. We're not going to do the match conversation, but we'll get to that in due course anyway. But a massive thanks to Andrea and to Adonis for joining us for tonight. Let us know your thoughts on this. Leave a comment down below. If you're on the audios, you can also leave comments on the audios. Give us a follow on the channel rating. You can find Andrea on Lockie Leeds on the Unfiltered Footballing Podcast. If you like your footballing podcast, the scouting report side of that, and far more detail, that is absolutely the place to go and check it out. And you can check Adonis for more of his thoughts on Leeds United over at the Roaring Peacock podcast. They are linked down below directly in the description as well. Their X tags are underneath their names. You can follow them there as well if you want to. We'll be back next Wednesday to have more chats about Leeds. In the meantime, we've got news tomorrow morning, and we'll also have our opposition view out for the game against Brentford this weekend. We will see if their absolutely on fire attack does that well against our cool backline. We'll see how they cancel each other out. Right, lads, thanks very much. Appreciate your time. We'll talk to you soon. See you, folks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks.